utilities. We're talking about the electricity, the phone, the water, the natural gas. If you have natural gas, anything in your house along those lines, trash pickup could even be in this potentially. So, what are some ways we can save money on utilities? I need to see your thoughts here. Turn the lights off when you leave, Andrea says. Unplug appliances when you're not using, Dana says. They are a constant drain on your electric bill. That stuff, whether it's the microwave or whatever. I know you can't like necessarily go through the house and unplug everything maybe, but what are the easy things to unplug? Because they're still draining electricity, even if they're sitting there not being used. Gail says temperature control. Uh, you know, when you come to my home in the summertime, you're probably going to just be like fanning yourself at some point because the thermostat is turned up a little higher. In the summertime and in the wintertime, you might want to wear a jacket or a sweater. I'm really not that big of an extreme, but I do tend to kind of go one way or the other depending on the season. Every degree that you lower your temperature in the wintertime and every degree you raise your thermostat temperature in the summertime, you are saving yourself. It makes a huge difference. Uh, so we've got that. See, Holly says turn down the temperature on the water heater. Absolutely. That water heater doesn't need to be any more than 120 degrees, and that sounds really hot, but believe it or not, a lot of times the hot water heater is set to like 150 or 140. Turn that sucker down to 120. You'll still have piping hot water, but it will save on electricity for sure. Chrissy says 75 degrees in the summer is what she has it set at. That's kind of what I do too, if not a little bit more, depending on the day. Insulating the water heater is a good idea, Sarah says. Absolutely. Katie says go with tankless. I mean, once you make that initial purchase, there's a little money on the front end, but the tankless water heater can save you money over time. There's some studies on that. Close the blinds, Dina says, on windows to keep the hot sun out, or in the wintertime, maybe open those blinds, right, to let the sun in. Make your children actually turn off their lights, says Jennifer. Absolutely. Military discounts on cell phone plans, Tori says. That's a great tip. Anybody that's in the military, there's lots of military discounts you can probably ask for on a lot of these different things that you spend money on, but that's a great tip there on cell phone plans. Thank you, Tori. Gail mentions temperature control. Denise mentions solar. That's definitely something to look into. David
Can I
says,
just add one thing to that military discount on
yeah,
the cell phone plans?
uh-huh.
You don't have to be active duty military. You could actually have served for a short period of time. And if you have honorable discharge papers or whatever the D something form is, you can get those discounts. So you don't have to be active military. You could have served at some point during your life and still get those discounts.
That's awesome. It stays with you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's really, really good. Um, it almost reminds, I don't know why this pops in my head. The crazy stuff that pops in my head, it made me think of senior citizen discounts. You reach a certain age, that stays with you too. But apples and oranges, completely different thing. But yes, thank you for sharing that. And speaking of cell phones, if you haven't tried the non-major carriers, I don't know if that's the right way to describe it, but if you haven't looked into Cricket, or if you haven't looked into Mint Mobile, if you haven't looked into some of those providers, I mean that'll cut your cell phone bill in half right there if you're not military and don't get any kind of discount like that, or maybe even if you are, it's still worth looking into. Um, they're using the same phone towers as AT&T or Verizon or whoever they've contracted with. They don't have their own cell towers. You're using the same network. It's almost like a store brand instead of a name brand. You can save a ton of money that way. We got smart home products, as Arte says. Turns off the lights at certain times, turns them back on at certain times. I like that. To kind of put it on autopilot, and that way it's not such a manual process. Wendy, I love all the numbers and letters there. I'm not sure what you were saying, if that was intentional or not, but I'm going to go with you saying set your thermostat at 76 degrees, and I will be right there with you on that. So when you're looking at ways to save on utilities, these are all really, really great ideas. I appreciate everybody sharing those. A few other things that come up sometimes when you are buying appliances, that are using electricity. Compare those EER, energy efficiency ratios. That can make a big difference. You know, the stuff that you're buying on the front end to save you money long term. Now, depending on where you live, water may not be your biggest bill, but you know, again, how can you conserve water if you have a leaky faucet, leaky toilet, that kind of thing? Get those things fixed. Usually, it doesn't cost a whole lot. Can save you a lot on your money. A slow leak can add a whole bunch to your water bill, and just something as simple as washing your clothes in cold water or cool. Not only do a lot of the labels recommend that, it will save you money on electricity and that sort of thing. So. Great ideas on utilities. The last thing I'll say is if you still have a landline phone in 2024, give me a call. We'll talk about it later. Okay. Thanks for all of the tips there. Holly mentions employees get a discount on Verizon, AT&T. Absolutely. And again, I would still encourage you to look at Cricket, Mint Mobile, those sorts of providers too, and just see what the best deal is.